Hello, my name is Pisani of Muller and Pisani Rechtsanwälte, a Munich-based law firm specializing in insurance and reinsurance law. Today I'm here with Cutajar, Managing Director of Mediterranean Insurance Brokers, to ask him some questions on the Maltese insurance business as such. From clients I understand that it's very important for them to know how mature a market is and how it is interlinked to the rest of the insurance world. Could you just please explain to us a bit about the Maltese insurance business?
The Maltese insurance market is quite elaborate and sophisticated. It has a long history. The structure of the Maltese market, in effect, is 5 insurance composite companies, 2 life companies, a number of insurance agents, some of them also representing capacity in Lloyd's. And you've got a whole elaborate intermediary market.
Right. Could you also tell us something about the supporting structures like accountancy firms, law firms?
In Malta you have the whole supporting structure. Accountancy firms, you have the big 4, audit firms, legal firms, some very smart legal firms are around. The banks, international and local banks of significant structure, apart from a set of other peripheral banks that have got their own niche and their own added value to the whole composite structure of the financial sector. So as a supporting mechanism, ranging from financial institutions to insurance-related, more focused on insurance structures like loss adjusting companies, surveyors, risk management consultants, they're all on the ground here. It's a very elaborate market, yes.
So I understand that there are also the human resources available on the market, but how about the cost structure then involved?
Human resources are available. Then you have a number of companies like the company I run, where we have international connections, we're in niche expertise, specialized industry knowledge can be imported. And the good thing about that is that Malta is quite central, though it's peripheral geographically in Europe, but it's quite central because we have connections with all major European cities and North African cities. On the cost structure, it is relatively cheap. It's not a cheap market. It's not cheap labor, but it's relatively cheap for a number of reasons. One is that the human cost of life in Malta is, in real terms, quite competitive. The peripheral costs, office space, ancillary services, licenses, it's also quite competitive.
You're just mentioning licenses, so the regulator actually comes into play. Could you probably just describe a bit how this very much veiled, firm but flexible works in real life?
Quite efficient. The good thing about the regulator is that it is a very much of a one-stop shop approach. So you have all the regulatory requisites very much more or less under one roof. Very cooperative people. I would perceive the regulator as being more of in inverted commas, a partner to help you out, rather than the bossing regulator one would expect.
So I would say it's rather supervisor than a regulator, actually
very
helping people through the whole process.
Yes, very true.
I mean, from clients I also understand that they go for Malta for the fact that it is an EU regulator, so it comes under European law and therefore has got access to the whole European market under European passporting. Is that your experience as well?
It is. It is, in fact, a number of foreign companies have opted to take Malta as their jurisdiction of choice for effectively a number of reasons, predominantly being one, the accessibility of Malta under the passporting regulations into the rest of Europe. Secondly, you have the proximity, not just geographically but also culture-wise, of the Maltese market and of the Maltese as such to the North African culture, and to the extent that a number of non-Maltese, or rather of foreign entities, have set up operations in Malta to run North African activities out of Malta, apart from the reality that Malta is a full member of the EU and obviously adheres to all the EU regulatory requisites.
And at the same time, the Maltese legislation offers a sort of unique structure with the PCC concept. Could you probably just describe a bit this concept to us?
I wouldn't call it a unique. I would potentially or love to call it a niche rather than a unique on a PCC structure. The good thing about Malta is that you have the full spectrum of what you can conceive as being an economy class PCC to a full-fledged captive operation and anywhere in between. So as a structure in Malta you can opt, and obviously that depends on the activity and the nature of the risks involved and the volume of the business that one would need to run through the system. You have the full spectrum that a potential investor can look at and has at his availability the options.
When foreigners coming to Malta to invest here, actually, from a risk point of view, it's very important actually to know and have access to insurance. So probably you also could tell us something about the brokering market in Malta.
The brokering market in Malta is a market that has, in the last 30 years, elaborated big time. And the structure of the market, you have an activity which is our activity effectively, where we have a connotation and we are exclusive correspondents of the biggest insurance broking operation in the world, and that gives us and obviously our client base international access to international knowledge. And also on the other end of the spectrum you have very much the domestic personalized, if I may call it so, small broking activity that's catering more for the small to SME and maybe personalized business, as much as you have operations where the big industry top end scale with all the peripheral and risk management approach to how risk is tackled is available on the ground.
Probably you also could tell us something about the added value a broker can offer in this world?
Absolutely. I think that in today's world, where we have been going through a relatively long and soft insurance market, it is the role of the broker to see beyond that. Eventually the market will harden, eventually it's a question of when, and when that happens then risk management and alternative risk management mechanisms have to come into play. So the insurance broker has to look not just at the option of giving a solution, an insurance solution to his clients. He has to look at the risk exposures and find ways and means of risk manage those to reduce the risk factors, both in terms of frequency and also in terms of amplitude. Beyond that, the broker has to keep an open mind and has to give the clients options of alternative risk mechanisms. It could be ranging from self-funding mechanisms to full captive options. So a broker's added value in the non-traditional way is that the broker has to look beyond the traditional broking environment of insurance. And risk management is a must, alternative risk mechanisms is a must, and non-conventional approaches have to come into play. The future is that.
So thank you very much for those insights and looking forward to seeing you in the future again.